Hi, I'm Mei Ma. I am a alum of the Arts Administration program at Columbia, Teachers College, Columbia University. I graduated from the program, I believe, in 1998. Not sure about that. About 20 years ago. I came to New York after working in Michigan for a number of years in both arts administration and architecture. I was a project manager at an architectural firm for a number of years and worked on building a small hospital in Michigan, and then moved on to run a small arts festival and work at a research center that focused on community development, and that's it.
So my name is Vasiliki Giannopoulos, and I graduated from the Arts Administration program in 2011. Just prior to attending the program, I worked as Public Relations Director at the Creative Arts Workshop, which is a small nonprofit art center in New Haven, Connecticut that offers visual art classes and workshops for adults and young people, as well as an active exhibition schedule and programs and events. I also dabbled into other areas of the arts and design and education scenes, and just wanted to find a way to I was looking for a way to take the knowledge and skills that I had developed to a new level, and that's when I started researching programs that could help me do that, and found the wonderful Arts Administration program at Columbia.
Great. May, I'll start with you. What was the Arts Administration field like when you entered it as an alum?
As an alum or as a student?
As an alum. Like, so when you left the program, what was it like? Was it a recognized field? How?
When I left the program and I started working, my first job was based on a fellowship that I got through the Arts Administration program. I was very lucky to be the second Morris Fellow at the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum. And from that, I was lucky enough to secure a position in the education department, which had been my goal. Once I was in the program, I knew I wanted to work in education in a museum, and the Cooper Hewitt was a great balance for me because it kind of melded my background in design with education and arts administration. Interestingly enough, most of my classmates, I believe, went into development. I was one of the very few people that went into education, but I think it was kind of a time period that was very ripe for that. There were a lot of people looking to start building their teams with people who were a little bit more savvy in the field. And as Vaso had mentioned, the program was really attractive to me, and I think also my classmates, because of the balance of programming opportunities or classwork opportunities in both law, education, and business school. So I think that was really attractive. And I think that those skills have really shown themselves when you bring in candidates. I think the candidates that we've looked at over the years have been extremely strong from the Teachers College program, more so than other programs, because I've noticed that those team members are more competent in a wide variety of skills. They can address issues in grants management, they can do the budgeting, they're able to write well. And I think that kind of combination is a skill set that I still see that needs to be built up within just the field of arts administration.
When you were entering the field after you graduated, what was, I guess maybe just talk about what type of job you're looking for and what led you to the Cooper Hewitt. Let's talk more about that.
Okay. I think, well, given that I graduated so recently, I don't know how many.
Well, you graduated though right after the recession.
Right after,
so
yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so after my first semester, or actually within the first semester of the Arts Administration program, I knew that I was still very interested in all the different disciplines of the field. I still hadn't honed down on one specific area that I wanted to work in, and so I was looking for an opportunity for an internship where I would be able to combine all the various professional interests that I had along with my personal interests. And that's when I read about all the wonderful work that Cooper Hewitt was doing, particularly with the National Design Awards program. And I reached out to our program director at the time, who said, "You have to go to Cooper Hewitt, you have to talk to May Ma." And so I reached out directly to May and inquired about various programs and opportunities where I'd be able to help out, and she offered me an internship in the education department, and started working with her very closely on the National Design Awards program, and that ended up leading into a position during my second year of the Arts Administration program. Yeah, and one of the great things that I enjoyed about both the internship aspect as well as the my position now is that it is a very interdisciplinary position within the arts administration field. The National Design Awards is Cooper Hewitt's largest education initiative, but at the same time, the National Design Awards program leads into various aspects of the museum world. We work very closely with our marketing and communications team in order to promote the awards program and the winners and the various programs and events that correspond to it. We host National Design Week every October, where we work very closely with the various team members in the education department to offer programs for the really little young ones, to teens, to young adults and professional designers. And we work, of course, very closely with our development team on the National Design Awards Gala celebration.
Yeah, I think it's a unique position that you've been able to secure, because as I had mentioned before, most of the positions are development positions, but this is like a really juicy position that allows you to do development, where it is the largest fundraiser for the museum, where it raises about $1.5 million in funds to develop programming for the museum, which funds our department, but at the same time it's very content driven. So I think that's a unique and fun position, and sometimes I don't know if work is always fun, but I think we had fun there.
It's definitely fun, and it's never boring. You're wearing multiple hats on any given day, which is something that I think the Arts Administration program prepares you well for. And I think we're starting to see that people who are more versed in the various areas of arts administration are succeeding in the field.
I think definitely. It's interesting for me as an alum, about 20 years out, approximately, to see some of my classmates are now becoming directors, so they're more director levels. And what I really love about the program and the opportunities that you have is that I get to, over the years, I've met loads of people from the program because I was able to offer internships to at least one person a year. So I know consistently different grads from the program, and they're all fantastic. But you've also created this amazing network of people. So one of the great things about the program I found is that I had an opportunity to work with a lot of students over the years, because Mrs. Lester Morris, who's on both the board of the Cooper Hewitt National Design Museum and Teachers College Columbia University, set up a wonderful fellowship program where one student in the graduate program would serve as an intern or graduate fellow in the program. So I've met lots of students from over the years. And then, of course, when you get a great person like Basso, then you have an opportunity to move them from a graduate fellow into a position. And you get to see all those people, you get to see who's really good. And to be honest, I managed the internship program at the Cooper Hewitt for many years, for over 10 years, and our candidates are good. The students come out, they're like well trained, they're versed. And one of the things that I always leave as kind of a point of reference for all the students going through the program, they all come to the museum, and all these very smart, eager people are like, I want to be a curator. And I'm like, that's great, you need to learn how to write a grant. And they're like, but I don't want to do that, I want to write about like art and how fabulous it is. I go, write in a grant. Because I think the graduate program at Teachers College, with the business classes and the marketing classes, it really helps you have an understanding about the fact that if you cannot communicate the needs and goals of your organization, because it is an organization, generally that you work for, you're not going to be successful. And I think that that is something I see far and above from these students, and from that I took away from the program as well.
Absolutely, and to piggyback on that, I feel like a curator speaks one language that's different than an educator, say, than a fundraiser, than a marketer, but the arts administration programs allows you to speak all of those languages and go into an organization and work with all those team players to move a certain vision forward. And so it's for the better of the organization to wear all of those hats at once, or maybe not, you may not be working specifically in those fields, but at least you understand those areas and the importance and value of them. So you're constantly shifting and thinking about other people's needs in order to move the organization forward.
That's true. So I think that we're actually a great group of colleagues and professionals.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and the open collaboration and teamwork, just being open to everyone is something that's crucial.
Yeah, that's great.
May, I don't know if we got the part on film about how you were saying that the people that were in your year, you were talking about the network that the ArtsAdmin program has, and how people in your year are now the directors, and so you can touch on that again.
I'm trying to figure out a way to blend it in. So, well, I'm trying to think. We've actually had the opportunity recently to work with some other graduates from the program. So, Elise Buxbaum, who graduated from the program a few years ago, was working with us on National Design Awards as the associate director of institutional giving at the museum. But what's really nice about that is, although she's no longer at the Cooper Hewitt, she's at another museum now. But we knew a lot of the same people. And one of the great parts about the program is that it builds this fantastic network of colleagues in the city specifically, definitely New York City, which is, why not come, if you're going to study arts administration, why not come to New York City in the States, but even internationally. I have lots of friends, or people, I'll be in a meeting and everyone's like, you'll never get that. Like, you can't call that organization and ask them. I'm like, okay. And then I'll go back and I'll be like, hey. Because it's a lot of my classmates are now like either directors of organizations or at the head of their department if it's a larger organization. So it's just really great group of friends and colleagues. And I have to say, actually, I was just in Singapore for work and called one of, not my classmate actually, but my partner who was in the class behind me. And she flew up to meet me in Singapore, and we did a little work. We talked about some projects that we could work on together, and we just had a lot of fun. But it's amazing how the ties from the program are very strong, and I think that's fantastic. And I'm sure that you have tons of friends. Well, even we went to we had this great story actually. We're working on a project at the Cooper Hewitt, the process lab, and we're talking about how we're going to use some new technology in this room. And so I just was like, fine, we're all going down to this other museum, and lo and behold, FASO's.
One of my classmates at the time, is actually working at the Museum of Arts and Design. So she was like, well, I'll give a call to the curator to come down and talk to you guys and speak about the exhibition. So
right.
I feel like we have a great network of alum, and they're working across all areas of the arts in New York City and abroad.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of fun.
Well, and you guys both speak to that too. The fact that you both graduated, you've been working together, and
that was one of the most exciting aspects about getting this internship is that having the internship with someone who was a graduate of the program and who had been through the program, so she knew what I had to offer essentially from the program itself, in addition to all the work I had done in addition to all the work that I had done before joining the program.
I mean, I think in some ways it may have set expectations because I was just like, well, just do the budget because I
Yeah.
assume you can do that. I'm like, how are we going to do the marketing on this? And those are kind of conversations. But it's also, in these weird moments where I think some of our colleagues think we're having very strange conversations because we will reference coursework that we took. So actually, very interestingly, recently there's a big lawsuit that's kind of happening in the design world. And I read about it, and Vassal read about it, and we turned and looked at each other, whoa, wait a minute, that is not right. And we were actually able to have this interesting conversation about copyright and legal issues, and that was solely based on all of our coursework that we took for the program. And I know our colleagues are kind of like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah.
But to us, it was like just baseline. Like we knew those conversations, we knew that there was definitely some infringement, and we were questioning why the people in this situation, why they had handled it that way, because given the knowledge that we gained from their program, we definitely wouldn't have done that. So it's still, I'm not finishing names, it's still ongoing. So
Yeah.
I had the luck of,
Sorry.
I had the
Privilege.
audacity. I was duped into working at the Cooper Hewitt for almost the age. And don't you be. And I suckered Vass up too.
Yeah. Yeah, somehow. She roped me in and then threw herself out of it.
I gave you very clear mentoring advice before I left. Let's see. I worked. You want me to say I work? I've worked at the Cooper Hewitt.
Whatever you
Well, how do you
prefer.
want to take that?
I don't know.
I worked at the Cooper Hewitt for 17 years on staff. As I mentioned before, I started off as a graduate fellow, as the Morris Education Fellow. But in the interim, luckily I've had lots of different iterations of starting off as a program assistant and really learning the nuts and bolts of how to run a department. And in between that and my current position as the deputy director, I've had opportunities to do all kinds of interesting things, from bringing people over from Cuba to talk about architectural, heritage projects, to working with Vassal on the National Design Awards. One of the other projects that I've been working on for the last few years, I'm very proud of, is that our team was one of the 3 organizations in the country to get a U.S. Department of Education Innovation in Education grant and we worked in partnership with 5 other organizations in the city, and the project is called ArtsAchieve, and it's looking at how the arts can affect what is it? I don't know. It's looking at how the arts can improve academic achievement across the curriculum in grades 5 through 12. And that's working very closely with the New York City Department of Education. So that's been a really fascinating look at how formal education can be impacted by informal education, which I think that the museum provides and is very strong at. And I'm leaving, no, I'm kidding. And now I'll be starting my own consulting business, so you can, no, I'm kidding.
Well, if you want to speak to that, you can. I mean, now that you have this wealth of experience under your belt from the Cooper Hewitt and so many skills at the ready, what do you know what the next chapter might be, or what really?
Oh no, it's really interesting. Since the last 6 months, I've actually had the opportunity to travel abroad quite a bit to represent the museum on different points of view on informal education opportunities in arts organizations. So they're very interested in what kind of changes can happen in Asia. I've been in Beijing and Singapore, both, and 2 very, very different communities, but both still active and interested in how they can use what resources they have to help their different populations. So that's, I think, a very interesting area for me. I've also worked on a lot of professional development opportunities for educators. And what I'm seeing right now is that there are a lot of people who are interested in what can happen around design thinking. And I've been asked to help do 2 things. One is to help a school district start a new museum school that would revolve around design thinking. So I'm talking to some people about that. And I'm also talking to a university who is interested in starting a new master's program in design and innovation. And so they're asking me to come and help them develop the curriculum and look at how they can position this type of degree. Is there a need for it? How do they work with the trustees? So it's kind of interesting to think about the skill set that I've developed at a museum, which is very narrow, and take it and look at it and spread my wings into a different area. I'm finding a lot of businesses want to consult, really about the point of innovation and creativity, which is, I think, something that is prevalent within everyone who comes to our program, because everyone's coming to the arts administration program because they're interested in creativity, but they're looking for a way, I think, to formalize it in some ways. So I think there are lots of opportunities now for people who are doing that. I think, if you looked at like what people are doing in around web development and creativity, and you are working with some really fantastic companies, like your work that you're doing with Behance is really interesting as well. I can't talk all the time. I'm just like making stuff up.
I know, that's why I was like, I don't know where you're going with this today.
I'm just talking. But you are, so Vaso, can you tell us about the work that you've done with some of the corporations? Because I think that it's actually interesting.
And Vaso, if you could maybe scoot in just a little bit, and yeah, there you go.
With corporations, like in terms of?
Well, it's here. I think the arts are changing, right? I think that just the world is changing in general because of all of the different types of technology opportunities. I think with your background in computer science, and art is this really unique blend, and I think that if we didn't have someone like you at the Cooper Hewitt with that background, our ability to work with Behance would be very challenging for us.
Definitely. Coming into the program with an arts background or any type of creative background definitely helps you connect the management side of things with the practical, connect the management and practical side of things with the creative aspect. So you understand how the back end of things, how things work, and therefore what needs to get done in order for something to happen. So it all goes back to the various languages, both within arts administration and I guess with outside sectors too, being able to communicate with everyone. And
but tell everyone what you're doing with Behance, because I think that's something that is an area that someone from graduating from the program could work in, but they may not think of.
So Behance is a social network for creative, both for the creative industry, both professionals as well as young designers. And a few years back we were looking for a greater online presence for the National Design Awards, where we could really showcase the breadth and history of our award winners. We're now celebrating our 15th anniversary, and have had amazing honorees over these years. And how do we allow them to connect with each other and with the world? And we partnered with Behance on creating a National Design Awards gallery where everyone's able to showcase their own portfolio of work, and it ranges from the year 2000 when the awards program was launched to our 2014 National Design Awards winner. And so when we launched that, I worked very closely with Behance on the functionalities and behind the platform in order to make it work for our needs. So we crafted it in a special way that helped it get to where it is today.
Yeah. Well, no, I think that just plays into like what kind of skill sets do you need to be successful in the field, and I think that a lot of times people don't realize that this kind of knowledge, a lot of us, I think, came into the field leaving art making behind, but there is that kind of content knowledge that we have that I think we can impart in a lot of ways. And some of us hide it, some of us, we don't talk about it. Someone's like, how do you know how to do that? I'm like, I know how to print. And they're like, oh, you do? It's like, it's interesting how like all this kind of information can suddenly come up in a meeting, and it's a really unique blend, like you were saying, of knowledge of practice of arts disciplines with understanding management. So it's kind of interesting.
Absolutely.
So the fact that the Cooper Hewitt is part of the Smithsonian, and the Smithsonian is one of the largest museum arts and cultural institutions in the country, have you noticed any like the direction of museums or things that the Smithsonian as a whole is paying attention to, and how you think that's going to translate to the field of arts administration? For example, well, when I was talking to some of the development people at your goodbye party, they were mentioning that they're changing systems. So you guys are doing away with Razor's Edge, and you're going on to Panda. Was it something like that? So those type of institutional changes, and
not very
if they're
exciting.
interested.
Well, I think it's interesting. Well, I think so. The field has changed. I think as any field, like I kind of mentioned before, like there's all these technological changes. I think specific for museums, I think one of the things that, first of all, there's always the back end things that have to change. We're part of the Smithsonian. We're the largest, cultural organization in the world. We have like 6,000 employees. We're one of 2 units in New York City. But so we're kind of lucky to have this like flexibility and this kind of unique environment of New York City, but have the underpinnings of being very, very tied to, regulations around, from the federal government and things like that. But it also gives us these great opportunities because we have colleagues that are doing research that we can then learn about. I never think about it, or I haven't thought about it, but whenever I need a lawyer, I just like send an email or call somebody. That's tens of. I personally have probably every year tens of thousands of dollars worth of legal fees if it was another organization. So there's kind of that kind of glorious moment of that, but they also are always implementing new things like changing the way they do constituent management. And I think that is one area that museums in particular, or specifically, have to deal with. Of we read this, we know all this, like the changing demographic of who's coming to museums. How do we address that? We know we have a really solid group of people coming till they're like 10, 12, and then they're gone until they have kids again. How do we make a cultural organization relevant and engaging to new audiences so that they feel compelled to pay $25 to come in for 2 hours? I mean, they could go to a movie, they could go to a baseball game. There's lots of other entertainment opportunities, and I think that question is something that will tell us what's going to happen in the future. Does that mean you have to kind of go, like you were saying, like really engage people through social media? Do you have to find ways to work with people in that way? Do you allow them to have access to content in ways that they didn't before? Do you create experiences within the galleries or through programming that is unique and so joyful that people want to come back and really be involved in the organization? And I think those are key questions for people as they're moving into the field and thinking about. But I think it also gives us, there's lots of new kinds of job opportunities that there weren't 20 years ago. I mean, we didn't have people 20 years ago who were specifically doing content development, not on the curatorial side, but in education or marketing. So I think there's just these new wings, but I think that they are reflective of society, of other things that are happening too. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's also being able to, with all the new technologies and database tools that are out there, we're able to better target certain audiences. So you don't necessarily want to go to a participant in a family program with the same outreach that you're giving a board member or high-level donor. So finding ways to reach all audiences equally, because all are valuable to your organization. And like May said, technology is starting to play a greater role in arts organizations and in all organizations. So even beyond the social media, it's how do we use technology to really enhance the user experience and the visitor's experience to be more engaging. So beyond just sticking a screen up on the wall, and how do they interact? How do they experience these objects that you're showing in the museum? And how do they further enhance their knowledge?
Right, and that doesn't even have to be at the organization. I mean, I think with all the new opportunities through the web and different apps and things like that, people can take content and experiences away with them and experience it someplace else. Why can't you have a great experience with a museum or Cooper Hewitt or Lincoln Center on your iPhone, 500 miles away, just as much as you can have it by attending an event? And I think that that's what people are realizing now, that those confines of what you thought of your community are broken out now. And how do we engage those people? And like you were saying, and the same tools, like moving into a great constituent management opportunity, allows you to do that.
Definitely. So it's deepening those relationships and furthering those experiences.
Do you think the institution, the museum you work for currently, or museums in general, are you getting any pushback with that, with the future of technology and what it could potentially bring from a curatorial? I mean, you guys are unique because you
feel like
pretty
we're really unique, but I could definitely see other museums having resistance, because it's how do you adapt to this changing climate when you have your high-level donors and board members who are of an older generation and aren't necessarily comfortable with this technology themselves, and are unsure and want to stay with the traditional sense of what a museum is. But at the same time, we've been fortunate enough to have board members and museum staff who's very behind it.
I mean, I think definitely there is still a divide with team members from different divisions, probably specifically curatorial, because they're trained in a different way, and they're trained to look at things and understand and communicate things in a different way. But I think in the same way, that doesn't mean that what their way is wrong. I just think that there are additional ways to do that. And so I think from our standpoint, the way that the Cooper Hewitt has addressed that is that we've really made a very concerted effort to work closely with them. And I think that, again, this is classic, case study. It really has to be top down, and I think also bottom up. So as you have, if you can educate your colleagues of the importance of why that is equally or valid as an opportunity for exchange and experience. At the same time, you have people who are saying that, who are younger, and it sort of sandwiches it up. I think that's how you can empower people to make those kind of changes.
And I think with that resistance within an organization also helps museum managers figure out is, well, if we're having resistance within the organization, we're going to have resistance from the outside community. How do, these are the questions that are going to come up. So it further, it helps museum professionals figure out how to answer these questions to the general public as well.
Oh, as alums, could you speak to the role of being a mentor in the field? Like, do you think it's important? Do you think it's something the program should do more of? I mean, so also to give you background, I'm forming an alumni committee, or I'm trying to, and I want to start a mentor program. And you guys are kind of an organic model that just exists. So if you could,
I think having a mentorship program within the program, a more formal mentorship program, would be extremely valuable. One of the key aspects about the program that everyone talks about when they're coming in is having access to this network of alums. and doing it formally will help further that. It's a little awkward reaching out to someone, essentially on a cold call. You wouldn't necessarily ask them the same questions that you would having worked with someone for a couple of years, or having a little more of a friend type relationship or mentor relationship.
Do you guys still do the alumni chats? I mean, I think that those are really great opportunities to meet people. I met a lot of the students that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think it would be a great program too, but I'm wondering if there's ways to do that in an informal way, because sometimes people, when you present things, they get sort of like, I can't do that all the time, because everyone gets kind of overwhelmed. I'm speaking from the person who's more established at that point. I totally understand, and I think that it is important, but you have to. This is probably not for the video. I'm just talking. Let's see.
But it probably has to be something that's not so pushed on people. But like I know there were a lot of frustrations with one of my classmates who came into the program thinking that there was like this huge network outside of New York, and when she was looking to move outside of New York and get in touch with people, the list was like very small. And so I think if that were made clear like in advance, or if there were, especially with people outside, because in New York there's so many alum, but outside of New York that might be a little more
it's a little bit more challenging.
A little more challenging, but a little more beneficial as well, to try and do something a little more formal.
I think it'd be great. I mean, sort of like how you have the partnership program with someone in the class ahead of you. It might be really nice to just set that up as a mentorship opportunity for someone who's a few years out.
Yeah, or even just hosting. I know when I was a student, we had the resume review workshop where alum came in and looked at everyone's resume and sort of did that mentoring type of thing. So just having more informal programs like that, where students are able to meet one-on-one with various alum in the different fields, just to give their feedback and just ask blatant questions about what it's like.
And I think they should, but I think honestly that the students should feel pretty comfortable or calling alums from the program who I think generally are pretty open to at least answering a few questions. They might not have 5 hours or 2 hours, but be like, hey, do you have 15 minutes? I'm wondering about this specific thing, and let people know as they graduate that that's an expectation. Like build that in for people. What's amazing to me is I think I've done a lot of sort of informal chats over the years and things like that. Sometimes people will call me and be like, oh, like I met you at this thing, and I was like, uh-oh. But it's great. It's like really, it was actually very nice for them to call me and say like, oh, that really helped me with this. One way that I think I informally mentored people is when there was like a group project and people would focus on a different organization. I would meet lots of people, and I ended up talking to a lot of those students over the years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, encourage students to use alum through any group projects that they're working on. That's an easy way to start building their own network of.
So.
Yeah.
But I think it's also letting people know how to be a mentor. I think that maybe that means you call in a bunch of alumni and you say, hey, that we'd like you to help us mentor some of the newer alums, and just give them pointers of how they can do that. I think I do that informally, so obviously I'll be checking up on Valsa. Turn around and I can check up on Valsa, but I'm in contact with a lot of other people, so I kind of keep tabs of where people are, and I'm like, hey, let's just have a cup of coffee and touch base. I actually just met with Sarah Pinto, who graduated a few years after me, about 5 years after me, and she had been at MoMA. So we're just kind of catching up and gossiping, and but that is part of that. It's like finding mentorship doesn't have to be serious and formal. It's also about finding out if you know, that new project that you're working on was worked out okay. Like, did you hear where someone else is working? That is the network that the Arts Administration program has created, and I think that we find informal ways of working in it, but it'd be nice to have some formal ways to do it too.
Yeah. And how do you guys want to wrap it up? Maybe say why people should go to the program. Why you're happy to be alums. I can never come up with a good concluding question, but
Well, it has to be a question, but
Well-
I would say that honestly, I looked at a lot of programs before I went into this one, and you know, I looked all over the country. I was accepted to several programs, and I chose this one because it was. I thought it uniquely provided coursework that I thought would be helpful down the line, and I also thought there was a strong alumni base that was very interesting and diverse, and I love the combination of visual and performing intertwined, because I think that the program itself provides an opportunity for you to learn from both sides. And not every program has that opportunity.
I'd have to agree with May. I think the program offers a unique set of courses within arts administration embedded within the program, and the opportunity to take classes at Columbia Business School and at the law school really does provide a unique opportunity for students to hone their skills and to develop their skills and to succeed in the arts administration field today.
And then there's all the great opportunities for internships with all the alum in the city, which is fantastic.
Yeah.